Hello everyone, welcome back to the second part of the episode. I say welcome back, welcome to the second part of the Yob episode. We're going to pick things right back up with the Yob's fifth album, The Great Cessation. Released in 2009, this would come out through Profound Law, and it was produced by Mike Scheit, Sanford Parker, and Billy Barnett would return as an engineer for it, but I'm still counting that. Now, background. So, after Yob broke up in 2006 and were done chasing all of their other projects, Mike Scheit and Travis Foster reformed Yob between themselves in 2008, hoping to start playing shows again and whatnot. However, Simon Sato did not return, and taking his place as a new bassist would be Aaron Reisberg, and also, wait, I finally have touring information for a Yob album? You bet your asses I do! They performed at the Roboom Festival in the Netherlands in 2010 and have since toured the US with a lot of other bands such as Exhumed, Orange Goblin, Tool, and Botch, just to name a few. Pretty big names in that style of genre of metal. And Yob even showed some mercy by making this album 5 songs long. Try not to push the boat out too far there, hey lads? Jokes aside, it's probably easy to find the original 2009 version of The Great Cessation, but I discovered the 2017 re-release, which adds to songs titled Blessed by Nothing and Pain Like Sugar. I won't be listening to either of those, but it's interesting to bring things like that up as you can hear the difference in production. I think that was helped by the fact that Sanford Parker is listed as performing synthesizer work on the album too, which might be what adds this new element to their sound. It's weird to say that since the band were barely even apart for 2 years. The album release gap between this and The Unreal Never Lived might be the longest, but it's far from the biggest one that I've had to cover on the show. And it's nice to see that the band take the time between albums, because holy hell does that work, and I'm glad that it paid off here. The structure really has this newfound grit to it, and it feels its lengthy time well, with the lyrics covering loss, faith, pain, and addiction, and the band do deliver here as well. Mike's vocals sound better with his guitar stretch sounding great with heavy riffs and solos. Aaron's bass work is good for his first showing, deep and chunky. Sanford's synth adds some nice layers, even though he's not a full-time member. And Travis's drumming hasn't lost a step, still heavy-hitting and hard. Standout songs include The Lie That Is Sin, and my favourite in the closing title track. The Great Cessation is a strong return for the band, with good pacing, production, and a new sense of technicality to it, so I can recommend this one. We then reached the band's sixth album, Atma. Released in 2011, it would be the band's last through the Profound Law label, and it was produced by Mike Scheit, Billy Barnett, and Jeff Olson. Now, background. So, with how successful The Great Cessation wound up being, the band didn't take long to get back to the studio to make this one. In fact, over their second run as a band, the difference between The Great Cessation and this album is only about 2 years, so it's not a huge gap there. Speaking of The Great Cessation, the fact that the band used some more people to help them in the studio shows through again this time around too. Jeff Olson provides some sample work, a dude named Scott Kelly provides additional vocal work and percussion, and a guy named Justin Reisberg, who I can only assume is Aaron's brother, also provides samples. That's sort of a running joke in the album's personnel notes. The 3 main band members provide their usual instruments along with samples and noise. I did at first wonder why the samples part is down. That usually indicates an artist sampling from something popular, usually another song or a movie clip or a famous speech. I don't know which of those latter two is utilised here, but it is the first time that the band has done that since their debut, which was about 8 years before this album came out. However, I sort of prefer its use on this album. For one thing, this album has a hefty 5 songs, stretching out to over 55 minutes in length, and the longest song in Before We Dreamed of 2 is just 1 second shy of being 16 minutes long. However, the sampling part is also something that hurts this album. In parts where the band could have added more solos in place of the long, heavy, heaving instrumental parts, they just replace it with samples from movies and so on. It just feels like a bit of a waste of me, and while I don't hate it completely, it's used a bit too much here for my liking, which is weird to say considering the 5 songs available. Which is a shame, because that aside, I do actually like the structuring, as the standard bludgeoning fare for Yob, and I appreciate them wanting to try something new, even if they try to squeeze it in as much as possible. And the lyrics cover darker stuff like death, angst, and betrayal, and the band all still sound solid as well. Mike's vocals sound grailier than usual, with solid riffs on guitar. Aaron's bass is heaving, thick, and nice and deep, and Travis's drumming is heavy, plunging deep, and sounds really great. My standout song is probably the closing track, Adrift in the Ocean. Atma is a good follow-up to a strong returning album, but despite not filling the long spaces as well, the solid performances and high production value do save the album in some places, so I can recommend this one. Then again, yeah. We then reached their 7th album, Clearing the Path to a Stand. Released in 2014, it would come out through the Neurot label and was produced by Billy Barnett and Brad Boatwright, making this the only Yob album to not have Mike Scheit working as a producer. Now, background. So after being signed with Profound Law for so long, the band wanted to change of pace, and they signed to Neuro, a record label belonging to the band Neurosis. I'm going to assume that's why this album took 3 years to get made, so there. Anyway, the stuff on this one would be more cut down compared to last time. Billy Barnett plays a Hammond organ on this album, and the only other person on hand that I could find besides the producers of the band was a dude named Orion Lando, who did the album's artwork. And speaking of this album, it's a longer one, clocking in at an hour, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Not as long as the band's debut, or as long as the next album, which we'll be covering after this one, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, this album is that long and has only 4 songs in it, so it harks back to the piss-taking days of their debut in that way. The longest song here is the closing track, Marrow, which clocks in at 18 minutes and 48 seconds. In fact, the shortest song here is the second one, Nothing to Win, which is 11 minutes long and 21 seconds long. But I'm not going to rant about it all that much, to be honest. It's just part of the course for Yob by the stage, and considering how well this album did critically, I won't turn my nose up at it too much. And I have a lot of nose to turn up at it, I know that. Rolling Stone especially liked the album, not my nose, calling it the best metal album of 2014 and ranking it as their 50th best album of the year, which is an accolade as not worthy of remembering that Will Smith has a second son. Then again, the metal scene in 2014 was a bit lackluster, so can't blame them. But does this album deserve those accolades? I like to think so, yeah. There's something more controlled about the drowning structures that I like that isn't hampered down by the production as opposed to what was occasionally found on Atma, and the lyrics, the storytelling especially, cover hopelessness, death, and the self-belief, and are pretty bold as well, and the bands all nail it on the head. Mike has good vocals, he probably sings his cleanest here, and his riffs are big and strong. Aaron's bass continues to shine and is fleshed out well, and Trevor's drumming is heavy, punching, and punchy. My standout song might be on Master Spectre here, but Marrow is a close second. Despite its length, the album really drags on. It dishes the old album's issues to progress with good storytelling, maturity, and writing, so I can recommend this one. And finally, we reach the band's 8th album, Our Raw Heart. Released in 2018, this one would come out through the Relapse label. It was produced by Billy Barnett, and it's also the band's longest album, at 1 hour, 30 minutes and 16 seconds. 13, not 30. Now, backgrounds. So the 4-year gap between albums might be due to a few things, not least of which was another label change, but that wasn't the only thing. The band did intend to release the album sooner, but then lead vocalist Mike Scheidt had a major health scare, and I did read once that it was possible that he had cancer. He since put it into remission, and that might not have been the case, but when this album came out last year... Well, I don't like to get too personal on this show, but last year I did lose someone close to me too, the Big C. That was a few months after Our Raw Heart was released, but as someone who watched and had to deal with someone going through it, I guess that's what makes this album stick out a lot more to me than anything else Yob have done to this point. It's the most personal album because of what happened to Mike, who wrote pretty much all the album while he was still in hospital bed recovering. The title, themes, and lyrics are all fitting indicators of the pain that Mike felt, but there's also an air of uncertainty to it as well. We'll get to that a bit later though. So this album is the band's longest in terms of both time and number of songs, with a total of 7. I know. It also somewhat paradoxically has Yob's shortest song in Lungs Reach, which is 5 minutes and 30 seconds long. Still, that aside, it is nice that the band put out an album that gives me more to talk about. It's one of the more experimental albums and still as aggressive as you'd expect from Yob, but with a lightness to it that defies the album's themes, and it all works out surprisingly well. Another factor that helps is producer Billy Barnett providing some piano work, and his production on this album sounds great. It adds to the structure, it sounds smooth, it flows well, but it chugs aggressively at the same time when it needs to. The lyrics covering dealing with death, life, regret, mortality, man, they got me at times. And the band did as well. Mike's vocals haven't sounded cleaner, and his riffs and solos are glide along really smoothly here. Aaron's bass is again deep, thick, and really pummeling and punching, and Trevor's drumming is speedy, smashing, and hard. Certain songs include The Screen, Lungs Reach, and my favourite in the closing title track. Our Raw Heart shows the band at their most vulnerable, experimental, and maybe their best, with the production polishing the already good performances and honest writing, so I can recommend this one. Highly so. So, with all that said, let's round them up. And I have to say most favourite is probably Our Raw Heart. I'm a bit biased because that was my first album full by Yob, but I love the honesty to it, and its tone is just great. Least favourite is maybe Libations of Carbon. It's the band's first album, I get that, but it does take the piss sometimes with its length. The band hadn't fully established themselves at that point, which is another thing that goes against it, but hey, there is some catharsis to be found in their earlier stuff too. I'm really scraping for these puns. Anyway, join me next time for Season 4 finale, where I cover La Habra, California's own Zebrahead. Going to be 3 parts long. Well, okay, that technically won't be the next thing you'll see me in. There could be another 5 on Right this week. There could be another vocal cover this week. There's definitely going to be PBW this weekend. So, but the next Backtracking episode is going to be Zebrahead. So I'll see you all for that. Thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.